Chosen one, there is a difference between casual intrigue and the kind of curiosity that rearranges a life. What rises in her when you appear belongs to the second kind. It does not feel like a game. It feels like a compass waking up. She is not trying to collect you. She is trying to understand the climate she just stepped into. Why does her voice find a truer pitch when she answers you? Why does time pass differently in the radius of your attention? Why does her body relax and sharpen at the same moment, as if rest and readiness were finally allowed to occupy the same chair? This is not crush theater. This is recognition. Her curiosity begins because you ask questions that respect reality. You do not invite performance with prompts designed to showcase your own insight in the reply. You ask what cost you the most and what paid you back unexpectedly. You ask what is tender right now and how she will protect it. You ask what laughter remembers and what silence refuses to forget. You hold the answers without grading them. You do not attach homework to honesty. When you notice brilliance, you name it to return it, not to own it. When you notice fatigue, you make space rather than speeches. A woman who has been sight-read and miscast too many times feels her guard negotiate with its own retirement. Her curiosity deepens because your availability arrives in clean windows. You do not flood her with access to generate momentum, then ration it later to manufacture longing. You offer presence you can sustain, attention you can afford, and pace that honors the most tender voice in the room. You keep your words small enough to keep and large enough to matter. Because of this, she does not wake at 3 a.m. doing math with timestamps to determine whether she matters. The absence of arithmetic itself becomes proof. Free from audit, curiosity grows into wonder. The wonder is not about spectacle, it is about coherence. She notices that the story you tell about yourself matches the story your calendar tells, and the story your friends tell, and the story your posture tells when you are sure no one is watching. She meets the same man at brunch and at midnight, at work and at worship, talking to a CEO and tipping a server. This sameness is not monotony, it is integrity. It allows her to move closer without bracing for the bait and switch she was trained to expect. She realizes she can risk asking the larger questions because the smaller ones have already been answered by your pattern. Her curiosity takes on direction when she encounters your boundaries as welcome signs, not barbed wire. The lines you draw are visible and kind. They are explained without apology and enforced without performance. You do not mistake speed for sincerity or chemistry for covenant. You are fluent in pause. You can let a story finish before desire interrupts. You can let a season ripen without running a red light through its last lesson. In such conditions, the questions that matter most finally come to the table. Who are we when no one is impressed? What do we protect when nothing is urgent? How do we behave when we are tired and the evening is asking for our least dramatic selves? Your life answers first, her curiosity follows. She wants to know about the people who tuned you. You do not recite a pantheon to aggrandize yourself. You speak of elders by name with uncomplicated gratitude. You tell the truth about the friend who told you the hard thing in a language you could hear, about the mentor who put a tool in your hand and a deadline on your excuses, about the auntie whose kitchen invented Sabbath when your pride wanted to perform exhaustion. You do not curate a myth of self-invention. You tell a lineage. Curiosity widens into context. She sees you are not a comet. You are part of a constellation. Constellations are navigable. They are also harder to counterfeit. Her curiosity intensifies when she realizes you are not studying her to manage her. You are studying her to honor her. You learn the ways delight announces itself in her, the foods that steady her blood, the music that unlocks laughter without permission slips, the corridor of the day where encouragement does more than efficiency ever could. You act on that knowledge quietly, without staging generosity for applause. A mug appears when the cold does, a sentence when doubt does, silence when clarity asks for it. These small accuracies are hard on cynicism. It begins to lose its argument. Curiosity takes its place, expanding until a future can fit inside. You do not fear the questions that test whether you can be wrong. When a disagreement arrives, you separate the person from the problem with surgical calm. You allow new information to revise your plan. You can say, "I don't know," without setting the house on fire, and I was wrong without writing an aria about your growth. She learns that curiosity will not be punished for discovering something inconvenient. The relationship becomes a study, not a courtroom. Inquiry can stay alive for years under those conditions. It turns into intimacy without having to stop being honest. Her curiosity is also theological because yours is. You practice awe in public ways that do not demand an audience. You are reverent with thresholds, blessing rooms quietly at the door by deciding to lower the price of being human inside them. You treat Sabbath as a civic duty, refusing to make exhaustion your badge. You pray with your hands by returning what you borrow better than you found it, and with your feet by showing up when you said you would. You do not perform piety, you embody devotion. She does not need to share your creed to feel the clean water that runs through your days. Clean water makes questions brave. What seals her curiosity is how you leave. At the end of a conversation, you do not hang on for applause. You end while tenderness still has energy. You close loops so tomorrow is not taxed by your exit. You place gratitude where it can be found later. A text that lands before midnight, a message that names what was beautiful without turning it into leverage. The aftertaste is clarity. In that clear space, the questions keep walking around like they own the place. They do, in a sense. You made them welcome. She goes home more herself than when she left, and people always go back to where they become more themselves. Hold this gently, chosen one. Do not exploit the curiosity you invite. Do not cultivate vagueness to inflate it. Keep feeding it with coherence, with kindness that can be counted on, with truth that keeps its cadence even when the room gets loud. Keep your no warm and your yes believable. Keep studying without turning people into homework. Keep remembering that the goal is not to be endlessly fascinating, it is to be endlessly faithful. Curiosity that grows in such soil becomes something stronger than fascination. It becomes trust that wants to build, to plant, to stay. And that is the rarest song a rock star can inspire, the one that turns an ovation into a home. Chosen one, fullness is a quiet weather. It does not clap for itself or draft strangers into proving it exists. It simply arrives and the room understands. The air abandons its old habit of hurrying. Laughter remembers how to be round. Attention, which so often behaves like a skittish animal, comes to stand beside you as if it has found a keeper. This is what happens when a man stops leaking. Your cup does not beg to be refilled by glances, compliments, or crises. It pours because it has learned the art of staying full. Feminine hearts are fluent in the difference. They encounter many men who are brilliant at collecting interest, but terrible at carrying stillness. Around you, they meet a different economy, a treasury that does not require their softness to stabilize its balance. Their bodies take 3 deeper breaths before their minds have time to narrate why. Fullness began for you, not with acquisition, but with abstention. You fasted from the sugars of validation long enough to taste your own center. You discovered there the steady protein of purpose and the slow sweetness of gratitude, both of which digest into poise. You gave your nervous system the gift of unbroken sleeps and unhurried mornings until your present stopped arriving with invoices. You forgave yourself without rewriting history and repented without hiring spectacle, and the shame that once starved you of real intimacy stopped telling the kitchen what to cook. A man who eats like this becomes a different kind of temperature. He does not devour a room to quiet a hunger he is pretending not to have. He offers a table because he has actually prepared one. Fullness is not stinginess with desire, it is stewardship of it. You do not approach a woman like a drought approaches a river. You approach like rain that has studied the soil. You do not look for what can be extracted, you listen for what can be tended. Your attention is not a straw, it is an irrigation plan. You ask questions that water roots, not weeds. You do not make her body pay tolls for your loneliness. You bring your own company, and so the company you make together is surplus, not survival. She recognizes this in the untheatrical way your hands hover before they touch, the way your shoulders do not telegraph panic when emotion grows large, the way your yes carries the weight of a man who has already said yes to himself. Attraction under such light is not frantic, it is relieved. Relief is the truest name for the magnetism you carry now. Fullness is visible in how you handle praise. You no longer drink it to cure thirst. You sip it to confirm calibration and pass the glass to the next set of hands. You receive honor as a map, not a mirror, using it to navigate toward more service rather than deeper self-adoration. You do not require ovations to continue, and so you do not behave like a street performer in rooms that need a shepherd. The feminine who watch you do this stop bracing for the turn where adoration becomes appetite. They settle into your orbit because orbits with you are not centrifuges, they are gardens with gravity. The plants keep growing when the gardener goes inside to rest. That is how fullness proves itself, in your absence as much as your presence. Fullness is measured by your relationship to time. A man living on fumes spends the future to pay for the present. You make deposits in hours no one is photographing, so that when the moment asks for glory, your soul can afford it without borrowing. You write the message that will save a day next week. You sharpen the tool that will prevent a rushed apology later. You choose the bedtime that keeps tomorrow from inheriting today's pride. None of this is glamorous. All of it is generous. It is why you can be playful without cruelty and decisive without speed. It is why she can lean without becoming a crutch, why she can laugh without losing her breath, why she can be beautiful without auditioning. Fullness holds boundaries without needing armor. The lines you keep are not barbed fences, they are living hedges that mark a habitat. Inside them, tenderness grows tall. Outside them, your no stays kind and clear enough to be tried again when the hour is right. You can decline an invitation without indicting the inviter. You can accept intimacy without annexing identity. You can let a question wait until the context is worthy, and you can let a story end where dignity is preserved. This ease with edges is rare and reparative. Many women have been taught that a man's boundaries are built to cage them, or that his lack of boundaries will require them to become the police. Your fullness refuses both errors. It allows them to remain feminine on purpose, not feminine on defense. Fullness travels. It does not restrict itself to romance. It changes the commons. It appears in the way you hold a door for one person and hold your tongue for another. It appears when you tip in a manner that leaves evidence of gratitude rather than a signature of superiority. It appears when you let someone merge into your lane without turning generosity into theater. It appears when you protect the absent with the same vigor you show to the present. These microclimates make a city survivable. They are the sacrament of men who have stopped auditioning for grandeur because they are too busy practicing goodness. The chosen ones recognize each other here in this public liturgy of quiet, repeatable mercy. Fullness refuses to counterfeit mystery. You do not hide to be interesting. You reveal at a pace intimacy can carry. You do not tease with emptiness. You draw with density. You do not orchestrate scarcity to inflate your value. You walk at the human speed where truth can keep up. The result is a steady, unmistakable pull that does not require tricks. She is not guessing. She is discovering. She is not decoding. She is deepening. Curiosity under these conditions does not spiral into anxiety. It blossoms into trust because it keeps being rewarded with coherence. Fullness is fierce when it needs to be. It has the resources to confront harm without turning the room into an arena. Because you are not starving, you can afford to be precise. Your anger becomes a tool, not a performance. You raise your voice only as high as truth requires. You take the blow that belongs to you and return the one that belongs to justice, not to ego. Afterward, you put the tools away so tenderness can resume. Witnessing this, she understands that your power is safe with her softness. She does not need to shrink to survive it. She can stand at her full height and find that your height was made for shelter. Fullness leaves a fragrance that lingers in the most ordinary corners. It shows up tomorrow when the chair sits where it belongs, because you put it back tonight. It shows up when the text that could have been a cliffhanger arrives instead as a closure. It shows up when the story you were tempted to center around yourself is told with the proper proportions of humility and humor. It shows up when you end the evening while everyone is still kind. These small fidelities are how a soul becomes a sanctuary. People will call you many names for it. Rockstar will be one of them. You can smile and keep sweeping the floor of your life because fullness prefers maintenance to mythology. So guard your fullness the way a beekeeper guards sweetness. with attentiveness, with smoke when necessary, with the humility to be stung and the wisdom to keep working anyway. Drink the water before the opinion. Keep the Sabbath that refuses to let applause take your breath. Keep the counsel that tells you when your strength is beginning to impersonate a mask. Keep delight on the calendar as seriously as duty. Keep your prayer short and honest. Let what overflows be clean. This is the aura of someone who is already full. It is the hush that precedes trust, the warmth that precedes wonder, the safety that makes beauty brave. Chosen one, gravity is not loud, and yet nothing defies it for long. The wholeness you have cultivated exerts that kind of pull, subtle in the moment, inescapable across time. People rearrange around you without feeling managed. Meetings find their cadence without feeling controlled, and feminine hearts locate their bearings without feeling annexed. What they are responding to is your coherence. All the parts of you that used to compete are now in conversation, and the conversation has produced a center that holds. A life that holds becomes a field, and fields grow things. Wholeness is not the absence of fracture, it is the integrity forged through repair. You did not arrive here by never breaking. You arrived by refusing to pretend you hadn't. You traced the cracks to their sources, not to assign blame, but to assign responsibility. You learned what tired sounds like in your mouth, and taught it to ask for rest before it asks for ruin. You learned how pride sneaks into your posture and invited laughter to escort it out. You learned where desire tries to outrun consent and put rhythm in its shoes. These learnings became laws inside you, gentle to carry, firm to violate. Others feel those laws the way a ship feels the true north of a compass. They steer by you without realizing they are doing so. This gravity simplifies choices. You are not tugged by every orbiting urgency or every passing praise. You are tuned to the frequency of faithful things. You say yes where your presence lowers the cost of being human, and no where your presence would be purchased by someone's avoidance. You do not sprint to prove you are brave or stall to prove you are wise. You move at the speed integrity can keep. This is less dramatic than the world's timelines. It is also more durable. Wholeness refuses the cheap acceleration that makes intimacy expensive later. It builds slow roads that do not wash out in the first storm. She drives them once and knows they will be there tomorrow. Your gravity is architectural. It arranges rooms. You pick a chair that widens the conversation instead of heightening your performance. You modulate your volume to lift accuracy rather than your profile. You leave the door open just enough that late honesty can still enter. You end on time, so kindness survives the evening. You keep the agenda porous to wonder, so efficiency does not turn the hour into a factory floor. None of these acts are glamorous. Together, they form a habitat. In habitats like this, beauty stops dressing like spectacle and starts behaving like culture. The feminine relaxes into that culture because it doesn't demand an audience, it offers a home. Wholeness is a magnet for wholeness. It calls to the strongest, kindest parts of other people and gives them a place to stand. The women who step into your field do not become ornaments or employees. They become more themselves. Your presence does not eclipse theirs, it clarifies it. You are unthreatened by the volume of their light because your light is aimed, not insecure. The compliments you give land as mirrors, not spotlights. The corrections you offer feel like tuning, not taming. Gravity like this does not flatten, it orients. In an oriented world, desire stops being a scavenger hunt and becomes a pilgrimage. This gravity also has weight with systems, not just souls. It changes the altitude of teams, the climate of neighborhoods, the average behavior of rooms you occupy regularly. You normalize the unmarketable virtues, answering on time, finishing what you start, returning what you borrow a little better than you received it. You normalize the civic courtesies that keep strangers from becoming enemies. The wave that says go ahead, the nod that says I see you, the apology that arrives before policy is required. You normalize the boundaries that protect futures, ending a meeting when clarity is present, refusing to gossip when intimacy is absent, declining opportunities that would spend your integrity for 10 minutes of glow. Eventually, the places you frequent begin to feel pre-organized, as if the furniture had learned where it belongs. In truth, it learned from you. Wholeness draws teaching to the surface because it is safe to learn in its presence. People admit error faster around you because error is not a death sentence. They attempt harder tasks because failure will be sized to growth, not to shame. They stay at the table through awkwardness because your calm insists that awkwardness is often the price of honesty. A woman who has carried too many fragile egos feels in your company the relief of being able to be brilliant and clumsy in the same hour without being reduced to either. Your gravity holds both until the right name appears, and then you speak it without gloating. Naming without gloating is a holy skill. It makes futures. Wholeness keeps your mystery clean. The unknown in you is not a labyrinth designed to trap curiosity. It is depth designed to reward it. You do not use vagueness to inflate your value. You let time do the work of revealing, and you align your reveals to context rather than to appetite. Because your private and public are made of the same material, the unveiling never feels like a bait and switch. It feels like a deepening. She follows that depth, not because she is dazzled, but because she is nourished. Nourishment has its own gravity. It brings people back without bargaining. Your gravity is strongest when tested. In conflict, you hold the line without holding the grudge. You distinguish between harm and discomfort and calibrate your response accordingly. You can say I was wrong at the speed dignity requires, and I forgive you at the speed safety permits. You refuse to outsource the hard work of repair to eloquence. You return later to see if the fix held. You change the schedule that made the break likely. Gravity like this does not glamorize fire. It installs sprinklers and trains hands. Watching you, she understands that with you, crises will not be turned into content, and reconciliation will not be turned into a virtue signal. She learns that the center you talk about is the center you use. There is a tenderness at the core of your gravity that keeps it from becoming control. You bless what you cannot hold, release what you cannot heal, and pray, not for convenience, but for courage, to do the next right thing without fanfare. You leave space for God to be God, and for people to surprise you. You do not squeeze outcomes until life stops wanting to live around you. This softness saves your strength from the harshness that so often masquerades as leadership. It also saves love from shrinking to fit your plans. The chosen ones practice this discipline together, catching each other when power tries once more to pose as destiny. You can tell gravity is working by what remains when you leave. Do the rooms still choose kindness over spectacle? Do the conversations resist the fast spiral into contempt? Does the plan breathe? Do the women who were lit by your presence keep their light pointed at their own callings rather than at your shadow? If yes, your wholeness is not a show, it is a standard. Standards replicate. They move faster than stories and last longer than slogans. They are the quiet miracles by which a life becomes more than an event. It becomes a place. Protect this gravity. Feed it with sleep that arrives on time, with food that keeps your mind lucid, with movement that treats your body as a steward rather than a billboard, with study that expands your compassion until it can carry contradiction without collapsing. Guard it from the theatrics that would rent it out for attention, and from the cynicism that would starve it with suspicion. Keep your rituals humble. Water before opinion, breath before broadcast, gratitude before conclusion, repair before rumor, Sabbath before strategy. When you forget, begin again without drama. Gravity does not need a parade to return, it needs permission. Then walk on, chosen one, without spectacle, with steadiness. Let your life keep doing its quiet astronomy. Let rooms keep finding their orbit. Let the women who meet you feel themselves restored to a weight that is exactly right for their bones. Let your name become shorthand for this promise. If he is here, it will hold. And when the hour ends, leave without collecting proof. Gravity has no autograph, it has fruit. The world will eat, and that will be enough. Chosen one, there is a difference between mystery that protects what is sacred and secrecy that hides what is rotten. The first is a canopy that lets intimacy grow at its natural pace. The second is a curtain that keeps the light out so pretense can survive. You learn the difference the hard way, and your life bears the proof. You do not ration yourself to inflate your value. You reveal yourself at the speed trust can carry. You do not breadcrumb anyone's heart with half-truths and delayed replies. You bring bread. If the moment is not ready to eat, you set the loaf down anyway and bless it for later. The feminine recognizes this rhythm immediately. Anxiety does not need to fill in the blanks you have left. Your coherence has already begun filling them with quiet, credible answers. Mystery in you is not a performance. It is depth dressed in discretion. It is the way you let questions live long enough to become better questions. It is the way you exit a story where the answer would be gossip and hold your tongue until love can still recognize itself in what you say. It is the way you keep holy things unphotographed, not because you are hoarding intimacy, but because intimacy dies of exposure when it is young. You do not turn private tenderness into public content. You do not turn a confession entrusted to your care into a parable that buys you credibility. Your refusal to monetize the sacred is the rarest magnetism of all. The body that has spent years guarding itself listens for exploitation and does not hear it. In the quiet left behind, desire becomes brave without becoming hurried. You understand that clarity is not the opposite of mystery. Confusion is, so you stay clear even when you stay deep. You answer what you can with words simple enough to be remembered after the emotions have dimmed. You mark with honesty the edges where you are still learning, and you invite the kind of companionship that knows how to stand there without demanding access. When the room asks you to be specific, you choose accuracy over artistry, and then you let your living do the embellishment. Mystery carried this way is not fog. It is forest, legible paths, birdsong you cannot name yet, a canopy that filters light into something kinder. She does not feel lost walking here. She feels oriented toward a horizon she actually wants to reach. Your silence does not pressurize, it shelters. You let pauses be chairs, not tests. You do not force words to arrive on your schedule. You know how to hear the first sentence of a truth and make the space that allows the second sentence to trust itself into existence. You know that sometimes her body knows the answer, but her mouth does not yet have the alphabet, and you honor that liminal place with patience. Patience is not what you perform to look gentle, it is what you practice to stay human. You modulate your pace to match reverence, not appetite. That pacing converts curiosity into safety and safety into revelation. It is not your cleverness that invites the story out, it is your restraint. You keep confidences the way a well keeps water, quietly, coolly, cleanly. People draw from you without becoming your advertisement. Your loyalty is audible even when you are alone, because you keep the absent blessed. If you must speak of someone who is not present, you speak as if they were, and you speak at a volume their dignity could survive. This is not moral theater. It is engineering. It keeps rooms from collapsing into the cheap cohesion gossip offers. It keeps the feminine from paying the old tax of overhearing themselves diminished in order to stay near a man's power. You are not capable of the downgrade they dread. Your gravity resists it on reflex. When conflict arrives, you do not hide behind ambiguity. Mystery is not your alibi. You distinguish between what is yours to own and what is yours to witness. You name your part with specificity and repair it with craftsmanship. You decline the seduction of vague apology that leaves everyone guessing what will be different next time. You become different next time. The clarity of that difference is what turns argument into architecture. She does not have to manage your meaning or draft an interpretive dance around your regret. She can rest in the evidence. In this climate, disagreement does not shrink intimacy, it refines it. The questions grow wiser because the answers grew braver. You cultivate private rituals that keep your depth from becoming a costume. There are mornings when you are ordinary and tired, and still the page receives your pen. Still the water meets your mouth before your first opinion. Still the prayer you do not advertise arranges your interior furniture so you can be sat upon by the day without breaking. There are evenings when the world wanted your noise and you gave it your boundaries instead. There are hours you protect for learning, so your silence has something to say when it finally speaks. These unglamorous acts are how your mystery stays honest. The chosen ones trade these practices like recipes, reminding one another that wonder needs maintenance to remain wonder and not drift into manipulation. Your attention refuses to be a net. It is a lantern. You shine it where it warms, not where it traps. You watch carefully without making anyone feel catalogued. You can admire without annexing and observe without owning. This is why your noticing is nourishment. You say, I saw the way you solved that problem in 3 moves. Or, I heard the tremor in your voice, and I will not ask it to sing today. And then you match your actions to your observation, and then you go on without a receipt. The mystery left in your wake is not what you want. It is what you know. How did he learn to be like that? The answer is disappointing to anyone searching for tricks and thrilling to anyone searching for truth. You practiced, you failed well, you returned to the well, you kept the well clean. You also hold your story with a generosity that refuses to weaponize it. You have known losses you will not parade to purchase pity. You have known victories you will not inflate to recruit worship. You will tell what is asked if telling will serve the listener. You will keep what is tender if keeping will serve the future. Between those 2 acts lies the wisdom that turns biographies into blessings rather than brands.